The world had ended not with a bang, but with a scream, a primal, guttural scream that echoed through the intensive care unit. It started quietly, a mild illness spreading silently through the population. Emily had been a nurse before it all began, a compassionate soul with a steady hand and a kind heart. When the outbreak hit her city, she found herself thrust into a nightmare. The hospital where she worked became a battleground, overrun with the infected, groaning, screaming, ravenous creatures with vacant, bloodshot eyes. She witnessed colleagues fall to the relentless onslaught of their patients, the screams of the infected and the staff alike echoing through the sterile corridors. Blood stained the floors and walls, mingling with the acrid smell of harsh disinfectants and alcohol. Emily ran from the break room, her heart pounding, dropping her coffee as she sprinted toward the emergency ward. But horror awaited her there too. Survivors barreled out of the double doors, pursued by a patient with a broken leg. Bleeding and yet driven by an insatiable hunger, Emily fought alongside her remaining co-workers, hands shaking as she wielded a fire axe scavenged from the hallway, its weight a grim reminder of the new world they now inhabited. Escape seemed futile. She and a small group of survivors managed to flee a few blocks away, desperation driving them to barricade themselves in a fortified apartment building. They scavenged apartments that would become their stronghold, rationing food and water, fortifying windows against the relentless moans and shrieks of the undead below. Days blurred into weeks, and the city outside grew eerily silent. The sounds of chaos were replaced by the haunting cries of the infected and the occasional distant gunfire. But even as they fought the undead, a new threat emerged. Gangs of desperate survivors and ruthless criminals roamed the streets, preying on the weak and defenseless. On scavenging runs, Emily witnessed acts of unspeakable cruelty, families torn apart for a scrap of food, innocent lives taken in a struggle for survival. She watched one of her own fall, a brave soul gunned down for standing up to injustice. Weeks turned into months, and hope flickered like a dying flame. Emily saw her companions succumb to despair, some choosing death over another day in a world where humanity seemed lost. Yet she clung to memories of a time before, the warmth of sunlight, the laughter of friends. Were they still out there, somewhere? One fateful night shattered their bleak existence. A distant rumble on the horizon grew louder, rhythmic thumping that turned into the roar of rockets overhead. Bright flashes of explosions lit up the night sky as Apache helicopters streaked past, followed by a convoy of military vehicles. Soldiers poured out, disciplined and determined, pushing back the undead with lethal efficiency. Emily watched from the apartment's top floor, torn between fear and a newfound glimmer of hope. For the first time in months, she allowed herself to believe they might survive. As the dust settled, soldiers led them to safety, a fortified refugee camp where survivors gathered, united in their will to rebuild among the faces of strangers. Emily spotted her brother Jason, exhausted and gaunt. He met her gaze and they embraced, tears of relief streaming down their faces. But amid the temporary solace, Emily couldn't ignore the scars that marred her soul. The loss, the fear, the unshakable dread that the horror was far from over. Night fell over the camp, and Emily listened to the distant moans of the undead, a haunting reminder of the price they had paid. The dead were mostly contained, but their legacy lingered, a world forever altered, where survival came at a cost too steep to measure.